So one of the favorite phrases that is presented to me during my personal transformation is a phrase, compare leads to despair. And the point of that phrase is maybe obvious, but it is to say that when we compare ourselves to others, that will lead to nothing but despair, because there will always be somebody with a nicer house or a nicer car or other possessions, or maybe someone who can run faster than us or do more push-ups than us, that sort of thing. And we can never win that battle, because even when we maybe eclipse someone, there's still someone else with something better. And that leaves us in a state of lack, in a state of feeling inadequate. Hence, compare leads to despair. But I started thinking about this concept a little differently this morning when I was at the gym, actually. And my take on this is that compare leads to contamination. Now, ultimately, I do think this will lead to despair, and I can talk about that in a minute. But when I say compare leads to contamination, let me explain. When we compare ourselves with others, typically we do so in tangible means, right? Like I just mentioned, a car, a house, maybe clothes, and it, again, might be something like as simple as, they can run faster than I can, they can do more push-ups at the gym, they're in better shape, maybe they have a better relationship, whatever it might be. It's some of those tangible things, right? Typically, anyway. And of course, the same is true when we're comparing ourselves to others. When we say, well, this person, they can't do as many push-ups as I can. They don't have a nice car as I have. And we kind of compare ourselves to them and deem ourselves to be better. The problem is, from my point of view, is that these things that we're basing our comparisons on contaminate us and our thinking. They do so because ultimately the number of push-ups you can do, or the type of car you drive, or clothes you wear, or whatever it might be, may not be something that leads to a happy life. It might ultimately, in the end, be meaningless. You can't do a whole bunch of push-ups and still be miserable at your job. You might have a great car and still be miserable at your job. You might be able to run a half marathon but still be miserable in your relationship. All those sorts of things. Because in the end, they don't matter. When we talk about the ultimate, what I believe is the ultimate value or the ultimate achievement in life is to be happy and to enjoy yourself. So we contaminate ourselves and our thinking with these things that really don't matter. And I think we further contaminate ourselves by using these markers that in the end don't matter as a way to separate ourselves from other people. That comparison on those objects that, again, like I just said, aren't really that important, tend to separate ourselves. I'm different than this person because of this reason or because of that reason. Whether you consider them to be better or worse, you separate yourself. And it takes away from the fact and the reality that we're all the same. In the end, we're all part of this human condition. We're all struggling with a lot of the same things. We're all working towards the same ends. We separate ourselves, and that's why I say when I talk about going full circle, when we contaminate ourselves, that leads to despair, because ultimately we wind up isolating ourselves from a lot of people that could be of value to our lives. So, of course, then the question becomes, what is the solution to this? And I might speak a little more in depth on this in another video, but to my thinking, one of the solutions to this is to, rather than looking at others and comparing yourself or your circumstances or whatever it is, whatever tangible objects we're talking about, and look for a reason to like them. Look for a reason to like them. Look for a reason to connect. Maybe you share a common interest. Maybe you like their shoes because you like the color pink. I don't know what it is. but look for a reason to like people. Because when we find that common ground, when we find ways to like other people, we can have those connections and we can avoid some of that contamination. And then we can get towards that happier life. So rather than letting compare lead to despair or compare lead to contamination, I urge you to look for another way, to find more reasons to like more people. See what happens. I think you'll like the results.